The Bluesford brothers are back. We are happy and kind of sad about what just happened. But then we're also happy because last night the Avs won. But we're sad that they lost both games at home. It's been a roller coaster of emotions. Dan, play that funky music. All right, guys. It's a loss, but a win, if that feels right to say. When we last came to you, the Nuggets were down 0-2. So much has happened since then that it kind of feels wild. So we're coming to you off of a 40-point loss again. And so it's weird to say it feels like a victory. But Ryan, it kind of feels like a victory that we're getting to Game 7. Yeah. If you had told me when we were down 0-2, the Nuggets get to Game 7, I'd have just been like, oh, well, however we get there is great with me. So Nuggets went down big. The Avs bounced back. We're going to talk about all of it and more. But Ryan, first initial reactions to the week that was. When did you realize that the Nuggets were locked in again and we're going to play well? Because I didn't believe after Game 3. Like Game 3, I was like, oh, the Wolves no-showed. I was like, that's cool that we showed up with intensity, but they showed up with none.
Yeah.
And then Game 4.
I believed after Game 3, but it's funny because it's weird to think that I sort of always assumed that this was going to go 7 games. But how we got here, I think I picked the Nuggets in 6 because I'm a homer. But I kind of always thought it was 7. So how we got here is insane, but the fact that we're here is the least surprising thing potentially ever. Jokic is unbelievable. I'm potentially more concerned about the supporting cast than I was after our last game, which is evident by I'm trying to look right now. Garbage time screws it up, but I think we had 2 real-time bench points in the entire game. So that's a little frustrating to just no show there on the bench. But I do think you're right in that this loss, and I think we'll get into this a little bit more, this loss doesn't feel as bad as Game 2. And to be honest, I think we would probably agree at this point that these are the best 2 teams in the West. And so if you lose to a team in 7, I would be so mad for a week. And I probably won't watch the rest of the playoffs. But I will be proud of how the team responded. Those 2 games at home. I mean, that Game 5 was some of the most fun basketball I've seen. Maybe I think that I don't know where it ranks in our. We should do this. Maybe this is an off-season pod, but ranking our live experiences at Nuggets games.
Yeah,
but that one's up there for me. I mean, it was fun as hell, and
Jokic was otherworldly.
Yeah, it just feels good to have responded. So I think that's my overall takeaway from the week that was. I also think we're probably winning Game 7, but it's this is a really good team, and Anthony Edwards could go for 60, and if they find the horseshoe that was firmly planted inside their buttholes, planted there again on Sunday in Ball Arena, then maybe they might win, because they had some shooting that was not the season averages, let's say.
Yeah, it's a thing that I think doesn't maybe get talked about enough in the increase in blowouts in the NBA. It is so much easier to jack a 3 when you're up 20. There is no pressure on you compared to when you're down 7 and you're on the road and if you miss this, they're going the other way. The crowd's going to go crazy. Percentages naturally go up, and the other team later in the game, the Nuggets knew, especially mid third quarter on, it was we have to get unreasonably hot from 3 to get back in this.
We also weren't shooting well to begin with, though.
No. I do want to highlight that. And that was, I think, the point you were getting at. I feel like our process was fine tonight. I feel like we got wide open threes. I feel like the Wolves said, hey, that beating that Jokic gave us when we tried to not double, not going to do that. We are coming with two. And to Finch's credit, I think if you're going to come with two against Jokic, it's got to be at home because these Nuggets shooters in Ball Arena, if you give them those looks, Jokic tonight made some filthy passes that he made one that was cross court that the Wolves literally, he got them to think he was passing it to AG. Then they thought he was throwing it to the corner. And I have no idea how he saw him. I thought he was stuck in the air and just effed. And he put it perfect across the court, opposite wing to Porter and hit him in the hands. And he just got to step into a jumper and he bricked the hell out of it. Porter bricked another one. Justin Holiday bricked 3-on-1 possession that Jokic got all the offensive rebounds and then just put
got
it in
into
himself.
Foul trouble.
Yeah. So there's I guess there's a calmness from this game, but also a nervousness in terms of now it's March Madness, right? Now it's, oh, you shot like crap again. You go home, right? There's no more like, well, this was that. The other big thing I wanted to talk about is the adjustment that the Wolves made that I thought was both smart and I thought the Nuggets in real time gave it to them a little bit easy. But you saw them hunting for switches, not for Ant, because they were like, well, if we bring a screen, they want to double him anyway. We're just helping, right? And now we've got Rudy Gobert's goofy giraffe legs frigging not right next to the rim to dunk it. And not even that's a guarantee. But they started posting Nas Reed and Towns, and they would get them cross-switched. We saw KCP and Murray in that a lot. First things first, great adjustment by Finch. I think we got to give him credit. And two, I don't think we have to give up that switch that easily. I think we can hard hedge and say we would love to have Towns make decisions. We would love to have Nas Reed make decisions for your offense with the ball, but not on a switch. And then two is that if they do get the switch sometimes, because sometimes you're going to get stuck, we need our guards to talk to Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic can do tell him the heinous things that guards do to him when they get switched onto him. Because we didn't see a lot of like KCP and Murray getting down, getting under, doing the annoying shit that guards can do when they get switched onto bigs, because you can basically do anything that's not a violation of international law.
Hold on.
And
I do want to say though that the hand check and all that stuff is great, but where Cat was getting the ball is almost like the high post. And he was back to the basket when he got the ball. Like it was a post entry kind of pass, but he's kind of, because he's such a cat, he's standing in the high post. And so to me, it's like, just get the guard off of it. Like give him the space, because I would much rather he shoot that floater than get up into him and like give him space to use his body. I agree with you, but like, I do think that those guards can give him a little bit of space, and then you allow that hedge to get back and Jokic to rotate over, and it's not this Jamal Murray running to the other side of the court action that we saw 3 times. Like, I just can't stand that shit. Like, we can't be asking Jamal to do that.
Yeah, no, I don't think we can ask him to do that. But I mean, also to your point, I guess to me, it's now become apparent that the Nuggets, I think the Wolves have realized that the Gobert Anthony Edwards pick and roll, which was a staple of their offense for obvious reasons during a lot, that is actually not their best matchup. It brings Jokic to the ball. He's unbelievably smart. He has really quick hands. I think he's averaging 3 steals in this series or something like that. It's kind of wild. And they're saying, you know who we actually want to be the last man rotating to the corner? Nikola Jokic. We would like him to have 2 feet in the paint to help. and then sprint out to our corner shooter. Jokic has a lot of strengths in his game. Sprinting to the corner shooter is not one of them, and not where we want him. So I agree with you. I think the Nuggets were a little lazy defensively tonight in terms of they didn't force the Timberwolves to make hard decisions. Like game 5, the Timberwolves forced Jokic to make hard shots and hard decisions. He just made all of them, right? But their defense wasn't so poor that it was, like we just let Murray and KCP get switched, and then we let them take one power dribble towards the basket and be 7 foot and shoot over someone who is not 7 feet at the rim. So I think that was a really good adjustment, but I do think there are answers for it for the Nuggets, both effort-wise and scheme-wise, that I'm not as concerned about it. But I thought that was really smart by Finch to say, hey, even with Conley back, which people were losing their mind about on Twitter tonight, like, see, this is what a shooter does. I'm like, they're not playing through Conley. I'm like, they are playing through their bigs and getting them cross-switched.
If Mike Conley is the reason they win this series, like, okay.
It's a tough one.
That's just dumb. Like, that's not the reason.
No,
I just
playing
think
through their bigs, and that was smart.
It boils down to Jamal Murray and the bench. And if Jamal Murray and the bench show up, we're going to win game 7. And if Jamal Murray and the bench don't show up, we won't win game 7. And it's sort of stupid that it's that simple, but it is that simple. And honestly, one of the two can show up and be covered by Michael Porter Jr. or Aaron Gordon or whatever. But like, that's obviously a lower odds proposition than just Jamal Murray being better. Because he was atrocious tonight. Like,
really bad.
I just don't. At a certain point, I don't know whether his elbow seemingly got hit like early on in the game, and I don't know whether it just affected him the rest of the way, but he was terrible and kept shooting. And it's just like, when we don't have that flow going, you want somebody to sort of be able to slow the game down a little bit. And it felt like we were continually rushing, which was what we did in those first 2 games. We were just rushed the whole time, and nobody's really playing in the flow. And it's Jamal's job to make sure that happens, even when he's not taking the ball up. Like, you still have to be able to run that action with Jokic. And until that action happens, maybe just don't do anything. Like,
I like that point from you. I hadn't considered that as much, but as you were talking, it really rung true with me of just because you are open for 3 does not mean that if you have shot like shit, you should take that 3. It's, hey, like, I am fine with Jamal Murray taking 3s. I'm fine with Justin Holiday taking 3s. I'm fine with Porter taking 3s. And there is a fine balance between why are you out there if you're not going to shoot? And like at home, I 100% want them to. But in the flow of a game, the way that game was going, especially when that game got down to 11, if I am Reggie Jackson, I'm saying Jokic is getting a post touch every time here. We're not shooting a quick 3. It may be there, 100%. But we are going to make them, get into a rock fight with us here and be very discouraged because we are going to get, whatever. And the 3s that the Nuggets missed tonight were just like step into them. So on the one hand, you can't get much better shots. Every NBA player says like when you get to step into it, get your feet set, look at the basket, that is the most cash 3 in the league. For a shooter, and they were bad tonight in that. So I did want to, I know it's a little bit old news now with this game, but you already talked about it a little bit, but how fucking good is Nikola Jokic, Ryan?
He is, I mean, I don't think it was that close already, but he's by far my favorite Denver athlete ever. There's no, like, it doesn't matter if he even wins another championship. The way that he carries himself, the way that he acts on and off the floor, you can't ask for anything more. And then his last 5 seasons, so since 2019, 2020, he is averaging 28 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists in 65 playoff games. We're talking about almost an entire season of basketball where he's averaging 28 points, 12 and 7. And everybody wants to talk about Joel Embiid, everybody wants to talk about Luka, everybody wants to talk about, all these great players. But the fact that he got to cement himself as the best player in the league and by far the best player in the world this series, I feel like he finally kind of got most of mainstream media to be like, okay, like he basically had to take down what people were comparing to Michael Jordan before they were willing to admit he was good at basketball and might have deserved an MVP. But I'm happy that most people are there now, and I'm thrilled that we get to continue to watch him play for our team, because you really cannot, like, no matter what happens on Sunday, you cannot ask for a better person to root for the next 8 years of their career, hopefully, and
hopefully we don't piss him off
and just get a couple more chips. Like, I don't think he cares that much. Like, as long as we don't do anything that's like, I don't know, we can't trade Vlatko, I guess. That'd be the one. We better get his approval if we trade Vlatko.
Yeah. That sounds right. Speaking of the mainstream media, I agree with you. It was very funny to watch everyone walk back some takes, shall we say. And the other part that's been hilarious is there's been 2 things that the mainstream media has done that has driven me crazy. Is they've continued to play this narrative that pretends like this is the first time this core has been battle tested.
Oh,
and I'm
my
like,
God.
We were down 3-1 twice in the bubble. Holy shit. We were the first team in history to ever fucking do that. Jamal Murray was on the team. Michael Porter was on the team. Nikola Jokic was on the fucking team.
I couldn't. Who was it?
It's not like, they were young. They were on the bench. They fucking were the stars.
It's the same core. It's literally the same core. It's the same group of guys who has been here the whole time.
Look at this and go, well, Will Barton was there then, or he had the potential to be, because he wasn't there because he was injured. But yeah, it drives me crazy. And the second thing is, this part doesn't make me mad. I mean, none of it makes me mad. It's fine. But the other part that is very funny to me is all of them just now discovering that Jokic has never played with anyone who's won a single award within 4 years even of playing with him. Like, they're like, we'll give him within 4. Like, say they traded for someone good. Nah, probably not. It's so dumb. It's so dumb how good he is, Ryan. That's why
look at Bruce Brown.
You feel confident.
Look at Bruce Brown. Everybody was like, the Nuggets can't afford to lose Bruce Brown. You know who didn't want Bruce Brown? The fucking Pacers, who were probably going to be playing the Celtics at the Eastern Conference Finals. They traded his ass because he couldn't play on their team. That's how good Nikola Jokic is at basketball. Like, Bruce Brown got his ass shipped to Toronto. I think traded again. So it's, we can't take it for granted how good he is. And I think Aaron Gordon is, I don't know if you did end up reading that Ringer piece yet, but it really, I mean, he is the epitome of what you need to do if you're Nikola Jokic's teammate, which is just be thankful. Like, Aaron Gordon is talented as hell, and he is a really good basketball player. He was unbelievable on the Magic. Like, he was good in his own right. He was an underqualified 1. He's an overqualified 2 on like a decent team. And he's an unbelievable 3 for a title contender. He just happens to arguably be our 4. at least in terms of offensive threat. But he
He's
is
our
just like,
second.
I
He's
don't
been our
care.
second best player this playoffs. He's been our second best player this
Oh,
playoffs. I
100%. It's
wanted to
not
read you this
close.
stat. You're not going to like it, but Jamal Murray's true shooting this postseason is down to 45.8. That's one of the 10 worst playoff marks in the entire three-point era out of 569 players with at least 200 shots. Aaron Gordon's been our second best, but you did bring up something with Aaron Gordon that also is wild to me. And I think it's part of the stupid way that we talk about the NBA, where people are like, you're either a championship team or you suck, right? Like, Aaron Gordon, as a very young player, put the Magic in the playoffs. We
Kyle,
fucking love LaMelo Ball, and they've never sniffed the playoffs.
we would have.
We fucking love all these young players. And Aaron Gordon, now granted, did he get his ass beat in the bubble by the Bucks? Yes. Yes, he did.
The Bucks
Okay.
team was good.
Oh, it wasn't the Bucks because that was the one where Lowry gave him his hotel number.
I'm just saying. My point is, I love this point. It's so important because if you're a mid-market team, I mean, we as Nuggets fans know, like, we loved Lennis Kleiza back in the day. We couldn't get enough of Lennis
Lithuanian
Kleiza. All you
liquidator.
want is somebody to root for, and like that Aaron Gordon is a perfect player to root for. He had unbelievable dunks in Orlando. He was dropping 25. He was winning slam dunk competitions. And then he came to the Nuggets and was like, yo, I'll do whatever you need me to do, man. Don't worry about it. Yeah. You need me to play?
I think he was like, how much weed is legal? Like, is there a limit to the weed? It's
technically, yes.
Weed?
Technically, yes, Aaron. But it's more than you will need. The limit is more than what you will need.
Yeah, don't take that as a challenge, Aaron. I
hope he does.
Can I give you a take that and we can kind of close this Nuggets and get into the Avs a little bit here. But can I give you a take that I'm working on, shall we say? Because I've been percolating on that Jamal Murray thing. So I think you brought up a good point where you were like, hey, it's Murray the bench, but we can kind of have one of those two be really good at home, right? I almost feel better that Jamal Murray's going to lose his goddamn mind in Game 7 because he's played so shitty. Like, it almost makes me feel like we're going to have one of those, like, Jokic comes out, settles us down, sets the tone, but we're going to get a Murray flurry at home. And listen, I would almost guarantee, I'm guaranteeing it, Ryan. We will see a Jamal Murray. He will score 8 at least points in a row by himself in Game 7. Jamal, I believe in you. All right. I think him and Porter both have this history of they do sometimes lay fucking goose eggs, but they always go and say sorry to Mike Malone. Mike Malone makes it a point to bring up in the press conference that they apologize to him like a little bitch. It's a power move. Mike just likes to talk to him about it. Michael. I think they joke about it in the locker room. Yeah, well, that's what they have to call him after he tells everyone that they apologize.
I don't disagree with you. Right. I don't disagree with you, but what I will say is that I'm so sick of doing this. I'm so sick of having to be here and Jokic putting up a pretty good game and getting zero fucking help. So, yes, I agree with you that will probably happen, but I do wish that it would have happened in Game 6 because this game this was right. This was ripe for the taking. And we just kind of...
Well, and it was 11-2, and we missed a bunch of open shots. And there's a world in which you just hit those threes
also,
and the Timberwolves go.
What is Michael Malone? Speaking of Michael Malone, what's he doing on that 20-0 run? Like, do you have a thumb up your ass? Like, what is happening in your brain where you're watching a 20-0 run happen? You're the king of rage timeouts, and you're not like, No, I'm not going to take a timeout.
I mean, I think. He did burn one when they got. It was, of course, after an offensive rebound. Those piss him off. But so he did take one about midway through the run.
Take another one.
Oh, I agree. You know me. I'm with it.
It's the
But
first half. Like, you
yeah,
have to be in the
I would have.
game. And
To
honestly,
be
though,
clear,
we kept trying to come back, too. Like, we did make runs. We got it to 15. We'd get it to 15. And you're like, oh, okay, maybe. And then Anthony Edwards would come down and hit a three. You're like, okay, this is why we can't get down by fucking 25. Like, you can't let Anthony Edwards get that freedom. So,
yeah, that's another good point to bring up. You can't get down against this Wolves team. The way they play defense, it's too good. All right, let's close it up. Game 7 predictions, Ryan. I have Nuggets 90, Wolves 80. I think it's
whoa,
going to be a hideous basketball
that
game.
is hideous.
Game 7, buttholes are tight always. Remember the bubble, Game 7 against the Jazz? Those teams had been flame-throwing, shish kebabbing each other, and it was ugly as shit. I think this one's going to be ugly. I trust Nikola Jokic, late game execution. The Wolves, do not forget, they were the worst crunch time offense in the NBA in the regular season. That's not to say they can't get good shots. We're in March Madness now. This is a one-game thing. But they haven't shown the ability to go and get those stops and to execute on the other end. So I think that some improved shooting from the Nuggets. I also think there's a world in which if the Wolves come out with that same thing, I think we hit. And I think if you hit early at ball, I think there's a world in which, just like we can't get down 20, they can't get down 20 because they can't score enough.
Yeah,
It's the opposite problems. They can slow us down enough to drag us into the mud where 20 is too much. And we will keep scoring enough.
I'm gonna go straight homer on it. I'm taking Nuggets by 18 or more.
I would love that.
I think it's one of those games where we don't ever really get down by more than 6 or lead by more than 6 for the first half. And then this just, the faucet turns off on some of their shooting. And I think it turns off in a big way. I think Ant might drop a 50 bomb on our head. But they're still going to lose by 20. So see you later.
Yeah. I
actually hope we never fucking see this guy again. Can I just say that as a true goodbye to Minnesota?
Yeah.
Like, I basically despise. I actually think that Karl Anthony Towns is my least favorite player in the NBA right now, and that includes Patrick Beverley, which is really saying something for me. I just can't stand him. The way that he held this three that he bricked,
exactly
he almost wedgied it. And he held his form up. I'm like, that's me at the rec center. Like, what the hell is going on? If anybody did that at the rec center, I'd immediately make fun of it. I can't believe that anybody, like, an NBA player did that on national television.
No big holds their form up like after misses like Karl Anthony Towns. He's revolutionized it.
I can't stand him. So
I would love that.
But I do love Anthony Edwards. I guess to get back to my original point, like he is unfucking believable, and I think the way he's sort of executed, individually has executed, has been impressive, and you can tell he's just tired sometimes, and just like literally has to take a play off. And then Cat will do something stupid and then take a foul on the other end. And he's kind of like, well, I hit a ridiculous 3 in KCP's eye, and then you did that. So thanks, buddy.
Yeah, I would love it if we could keep any pro Timberwolves talk until after the series. That was a little too lovey-dovey. I didn't like it. So I will just say, Rudy, it's not we, it's you. Okay. Nugs at 7. It's our prediction here. It's yeah, I just trust this team.
I was like the Athletic there. I was dropping the obituary piece just the game, even days before the game 7 actually happened. I was saying oh, Anthony Edwards actually really hated playing with Karl Anthony Towns. That's what the Athletic. That's what Sam Amick is going to. Sam Amick is
Edwards
going to
said
say
he'd
it.
be open to trading both of them. He's fine with trading both of them, actually.
Oh, you have to trade Gobert.
I mean, they're going to trade one of them, but we'll see.
Unless they win the title, in which case they probably won't.
They are not, which is why I'm so glad that we will be in the arena live for you here with Blues for Brothers, because an annoying fan base on Twitter already in the Boston Celtics fan base is going to be rooting their asses off for the Timberwolves. They're going to be trying to get, if it's obvious we're going to win, they're going to try to get our guys suspended retroactively for a heating pad coming near. Can we talk about the irony? No, I don't want to get sidetracked on it. Fuck it, but
can we
Kyle Anderson spilled water on the sideline,
suspend him for this game?
KCP actually slipped on it. So instead of a suspension, I'm calling for Kyle Anderson to have to play at least 35 minutes in Game 7. That's his punishment. He has to be out there. They have no choice because he's been terrible this series. All right, getting into what a roller coaster with these two teams. I was coming into this podcast, I was so prepared for it to be like the Avs obituary and just like joy for the Nuggets. But instead, it's a little bit of a sobering moment. Still celebratory with the Nuggets. But the Avs dug deep. It was 1-1 coming back. We talked about it being concerned of like, hey, we haven't led in these first 2 games. I know it feels good to split, but are the Stars going to turn this on? And then I think it's important to note that the Avs Stars have not looked like stars in this series yet. Like they haven't popped off the screen. They haven't, jumped out in ways that they have in previous playoffs. Even when we were losing, like games or whatever, there would be once a game where I would just go, "Holy shit, we have Nathan McKinnon on our team!" Like, and it feels like whatever strategy, kind of slowing it down, uglying it up. We haven't been able to get momentum and speed going into the zone for him, and so we haven't had those McKinnon games. So it was awesome because with the season on the line, Cale Makar took over that game, and he was filthy. And that's why when you're the Avs, very similar to Jokic Murray, no matter how bad the situation gets, you go, we have McKinnon and McCaw.
You don't Valerie Nichushkin.
You don't Nichusk. That's no Nichuskin. No. You talk about unbelievably bad timing. Like, he was at the skate around in the morning, all the media guys were saying. Like, and if you're him, you have to know you just peed cocaine out of your penis. Like, how positive do you have to be for them to suspend you? The NHL wants to sit on that.
Well,
like,
the crazy part too is that like
he had to be doing lines in front of the guy testing him.
Yeah,
like
I mean, you basically have to be to test positive for cocaine, dude. Like, what are you doing, dude?
It was unreal, but we digress. So
also maybe I hope he gets the help he needs.
Yes,
we
big help he needs, guys.
The Bluesifer brothers, as a podcast, hope that Valerie gets the help he needs.
Everybody gets the help they need and lives their best life. Besides Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, and
they don't need our curse. They just are going to do that by themselves. They're going to screw that up all on their own.
All right. The point I wanted to get back to, though, our stars have to be stars. And if this unlocks Makar or, McKinnon gets to see one go in, daddy, are those buttholes going to get tight in Dallas. And they are loose down there. So that's something. It's like the big San Antonio women that Charles is always talking about. What he doesn't know about that the Bluesford brothers have inside information on is there are loose buttholes, flappy buttholes down in Dallas. It's not any body type thing, not anything
How do
shaming
we
because
have
we're not that
inside
podcast.
information on this?
We have probes in there, Ryan. That's what we spend our podcast budget on. Is we just have tiny probes in there, and honestly, they're having trouble staying in.
I was
So
going
we
to
haven't
say, I
gotten.
hope they're expandable, it sounds like.
Yeah, we haven't gotten good info on the Stars or scouting ahead for the Mavericks. We thought it was an investment, but my goodness, are those loosey goosey out there? But
They're
those
just falling
things.
out in the street.
Oh my gosh, it's hot dogs
Good
down
thing they're
home.
branded, though. We've gotten a lot of follows, and obviously,
Oh
I
my
hope you
god.
subscribe to the pod. 5 stars, 5 stars.
Yeah, I mean, you're not enjoying this part when you realize you discovered the pod through a keistered drone. But stick with us. It's going to be fine.
Well, it didn't. You didn't
But
even
they are
feel it.
literally,
You didn't even feel
Ryan,
it, and it was for science. So don't worry about it.
yeah, those probes are laying on the streets of Dallas like a ticker tape parade. All right, that the Avs are going to throw after we beat them. Just kidding. I don't think we're actually going to win, but I got in the probe rhythm. But this Dallas team hasn't been through all of the wars to game 7 at home against the guy who's going to win the most valuable player in hockey and Cale Makar. I wouldn't feel great about it if I was Dallas. I guess I'd feel 10% less confident than I probably do as a Nuggets fan, right? Where it's like anything can happen. It's one game. I think we'll win. We're at home, but I wish we didn't have to go to game 7. So what's kind of been your takeaways on how they've been able to slow down the Avs? And do you think the Avs can break out at home and put a little pressure on them? Is this going 7?
I hope so. You asked my biggest takeaway, and I think I would go to the other side of the ice. I'd talk about Georgie. I mean, he's been unbelievable. He has been the only reason we've stayed in this series is because he's been standing on his head. So I think that the Avs do have a lot of offensive talent. So ideally, that they should be able to generate some opportunities here, especially at home. But they've honestly played like shit at home. So it really makes me nervous. I hate the Stars too. Just something about Dallas in general. You talk about inside info. I did have to spend a week there. If you want a little story time, we're only 40 minutes in. I could do a little story time. So when I was at Oklahoma, we were going to the USA Cross Country Championships, and there was supposed to be this ice storm in Norman. And so we had to drive down to Dallas to try to avoid this ice storm, which didn't work. The ice storm hit Dallas too. And it was terrible there as well. But it was one of the worst experiences of my life. It is just a sprawling metropolis. It's one of those places where, like Dallas, Fort Worth, you think of them, people say it together, but it's sort of like Phoenix and Scottsdale, where you don't realize until you're there that it's the same town. It's like saying Denver and Highlands Ranch, but if Highlands Ranch was way bigger. So, anyways, we had rolling blackouts. We had to move like 3 separate times in hotels. The other guy on the trip got food poisoning. Our assistant coach was leaving for another job, so he just did not give a shit. And then we got to San Diego, and I made a world championship team.
Well, this has been our hockey breakdown corner with Ryan. He's
Anyways, Dallas
his biggest takeaways from the series every time, and what I've heard from him there is more icing. More icing is what we need out there because it storms with icing, and the officials need to keep an eye on it.
It's
is what I heard.
I think our guys are getting a little too comfortable at home because Dallas is so terrible. And then they're so shocked by how bad Dallas is compared to Denver. They're kind of off their game, you know?
It tracks, honestly. Okay, so final predictions here in this series. Is it going? I'm going Stars in 7.
Oh.
I think we get the one at home. I don't think nobody beats us 3 times in a row at home.
I'll go Avs in 7. I'm a homer. Why not? Let's go.
Ryan, if our weekend ends with 2 Game 7 wins, I'm going to live forever.
Do we know what time this Sunday? Like, they can't be simultaneous, right?
Don't know. No. We don't know yet because I think they're waiting until tomorrow to see if Indy can force that to 7, because then I think the Knicks would be more likely to take that early slot, that like 1:30 ABC, and we'd take the 6 p.m.
As long as it's not 8:30.
I mean, I suppose there's a world in which also they could. Oh, my God. What if they have Luka and OKC? I mean, we might play at 11 a.m. on NBA TV. Jesus Christ. Not really, everyone. Calm down. But that is kind of, I mean, it's an awesome day of basketball, but it's kind of stressful for the NBA to figure out the scheduling of it.
Well, let's think about this. So the East Coast game would probably be first, yes, because that's a 1 p.m. That's 1 p.m. tip local. And then it would probably be OKC, and then it'd be us because that's geographically how.
So like a 4 and a 7 instead of a
because Oklahoma Central Time.
Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, so it's not as bad as I thought, but I was just thinking 2 West Coast teams, and two Western Conference series.
We might be a 7 o'clock tip, but
that'd be great. I mean, it'd be terrible because I have to sit in it all day. But yeah. All right. I think this does it. Real quick, you can only give one word. Would you rather see Dallas or OKC?
Okay.
Let's say it on 3. Oh, Dallas. 100% Dallas. All right. This has been.
I'm just scared of Luka, dude. That left-handed floater is going to live in my dreams for too long.
Yeah. If you believe all the reports that Luka's camp is clearly leaking, he gets out of bed in traction every day. And other things the mainstream media has forgotten is no one shoots a lower percentage with Aaron Gordon guarding them than Luka Doncic. So get ready to go from heaven to hell. And I don't want Jamal Murray to have to go from goddamn Jaden McDaniels to that menace Lou Dort. That feels like a good way to get him to retire from the NBA, because that's cruel and unusual to put a man through that after playing into the finals.
You're right. I'm just that Kyrie shot will live in my head for too long. So you're right, and that's why it took me so long. But I'm the top tier talent. Like Kyrie and Luka, obviously I'd put SGA, and then I'm putting Kyrie and Luka, Kyrie, and then I'm putting whoever else on the Thunder. So that's what made me say that. But you are right that it is probably a better matchup for us, despite the top 2 being picked out.
All right. Well, I hope you're right, and I hope we get to talk about the Avs Western Conference matchup as well going forward. So go Avs, go Nuggets. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe. Super producer Dan, excellent work as always. We'll see you next week.
Bye.